What's going on, everybody? Jacob here at SDR Motorsports. Today we're going to be going over the install of our Pro R version 2 doors. All right, so when you guys get your doors in the mail, you'll notice that they're going to come in 2 boxes. They're going to be split front and rear, notated with a -F or a -R on your box. So I went ahead and got the front door package all opened up and laid out here for you guys. So what you should have in that front door package is both a driver and a passenger side frame. You'll get a manila package that has 4 separate sets of hardware in it and some door foam. You'll also have a driver and passenger latch bracket and a set of upper and lower driver and passenger hinge brackets. You'll also have in that box both a driver and passenger front door skin, as well as the inserts for those front doors. And in your rear box, you should have pretty much the same thing. You'll have a driver side and passenger side door frame. You'll have your driver and passenger upper section of your skin, the lower section, driver and passenger of your door skin, and the main center section of the door skin. You'll also have another one of those manila packages that's going to have 4 bags of hardware and your foam in it, and then a bunch of varied brackets. So these guys are going to be your lower skin brackets, driver and passenger. These are center skin brackets, driver and passenger. These guys are going to be your door stops. And then you have hinge brackets, upper and lower, and latch brackets, driver and passenger. All right, so what we're gonna start with is a pre-assembly of the skins here. So we're just gonna start on the back because they've got a little bit more hardware to them. Tools you'll need for that are a 5/32 Allen wrench and a 7/16 socket, whether it's on a ratchet or on an impact, doesn't really matter. So you're gonna wanna go ahead and get those rear skins laid out. So you have your upper piece. This longer end is gonna go towards the shallow end on the center section of the skin. The S logo is obviously the rear. So that guy will lay on there as such. And same thing with your lower skin section. These returns are gonna go into the door, and it's gonna match up with the lower section of the center skin there. And then you'll also just wanna go ahead and grab one of your logo backer plates. And what we'll start doing is we'll just take our hardware and drop it through here. You'll notice I'm using some black hardware. Our kit from the website does come standard with regular silver stainless hardware. You can option on the website all of the black hardware for the skins from there. So since this guy is just keeping some black doors, we're gonna go ahead and opt for the black skins here. So just go ahead and get a couple of those bolts started, and nuts and washers on the back side. Same thing up here on the top section of the skin. Just throw a couple in there. Nuts and washer on the back side. And then your backer plate is going to sit on the back side of the door frame, door skin. And we'll go ahead and throw the hardware in that guy. So this is what a complete assembled rear door skin should look like. I'm gonna go ahead and get all the rest of the hardware thrown in there and do the other side, and then we'll move on to the front doors. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the front skins. They're a little bit easier, so you'll just have the main section of the skin as well as the insert. Now this insert's going to pocket inside the frame and sit behind the skin. So it'll go ahead and line up like so. And same thing as the rear. Go ahead and just get a couple of those bolts started. Again, we opted for the black hardware instead of the standard silver hardware that will come with the kit. So we'll go ahead and pop a couple of those in there with a nut and washer on the back and get them all snugged up. All right, so once you've got all that tightened up, this should be what your skin looks like. This is a driver's side front door. So once you've got all of the skins together, we're gonna go ahead and move over to the car and start the teardown. All right, so first things first on the teardown of your skins is we're gonna have to remove the latch and the lever. So to go ahead and do that, you do have to loosen some of the door skin bolts here. So we're gonna go ahead and grab a T40 Torx on our impact and just back a couple of those guys out. And once we have these guys loose, we can go ahead and grab an 8mm socket and remove the two bolts holding in the bear claw latch. And you'll want to go ahead and keep the latch and the hardware. And then we'll go ahead with a T30 Torx. We can remove the two holding the paddle. Missed a T40 here. And with all that done, you should be able to pull the skin away from the door frame and wiggle that paddle out. Go ahead and keep that to the side as well. Okay, so for the rear doors, they're gonna be a little bit different than the fronts. Those two 8mm bolts that hold the bear claw latch on are actually on the inside of the frame here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab a T27 Torx and remove all of the hardware holding the skin to the frame. And there is a couple of T40s mixed in with the rest. We'll go ahead and pop those guys out as well. And then we can remove the entire skin. Go ahead and set that aside. And then same as the front door, we'll go ahead and remove the two 8mm bolts that hold the latch on and the two T30s that hold on the paddle. Same as the front, make sure you hold on to all that hardware as if we are gonna reuse it. Grab that T30. And set those aside. All right, so now we're gonna get into the actual removal of the door frames themselves. So go ahead and grab yourself a T27 Torx and a 10mm wrench or socket, depending on which way you want to do it. We'll go ahead and remove this upper hinge bolt here. take the nut off, set it aside, leave that upper bolt in for now. That way we can still pivot on it and the door is not going to go all over the place. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab a T40 Torx to go ahead and take these guys out. And a little pro tip here too, grab yourself a Sharpie, and like you can see I've already previously done here, just go ahead and mark the surround of that bracket and of one of those bolts, because we are going to have to remove that bracket. So just doing those Sharpie marks is going to aid in getting that bracket and that hinge back exactly where it was before and aid in alignment. So with those lower bolts removed from the bracket and the nut off of this guy here, go ahead and remove the door frame. This guy might be stuck in there, so it might take a little bit of persuasion to remove. Couple of love taps and it should come right out. You don't need your frame anymore, so go ahead and put it wherever you put your skins. But again, make sure you retain that door hardware because it is going to get reused. Okay, so same thing for the front doors. You're going to go ahead and use that same T27 and 10 millimeter and remove that upper pivot bolt. And go ahead, mark those bolts in the hinge at the bottom and remove those. All right, so once your skins are complete, or your frames, sorry, are completely off of the car with the skins separated, last step with them, what you'll need to do is just remove that hinge bracket from the skin itself. Go ahead and grab your 10 millimeter. Back that guy off of the front and the rear door. And just like the tops, pop out that hardware and set aside the bracket and the pin. So the next step in the process here is going to be to go ahead and get those lower hinge brackets reinstalled. Now this is where us marking where those bolts were is going to come in handy. So first things first, we're just going to go ahead and get that hardware thrown in there loose. Make sure that bracket is facing the right way. They're going to be opposite of the ones on the top. And make sure when they're removed from the car that you don't mix up which one was front and which one was rear, because they are going to be positioned a little bit differently than each other. So once you've got that hardware loose, you're just going to want to go ahead and do your best here to make sure that you've got all your marks lined up, because this is going to aid in the final adjustment of your doors if that is right back where it was. So front door is all good. We'll go ahead and we'll jump onto the back. All right, so same as the front back here, bracket's gonna go on the opposite way of the top. We'll get that hardware in loose. And leave that rear one loose, because there is some plastics here that might get in the way when you go to install your hinge bracket. Okay, so moving on to this back door here, we're gonna go ahead and start on the actual install of these doors. So go ahead and grab from your hardware pack one of the upper hinge pivots. You'll notice it's the upper because it has these built-in door stops, and one of the lowers, and we'll go ahead and get these loosely installed. So these are going to go with the silver PEM nuts towards the outside of the car. And again, the one with the door stops is gonna go up top. Slide your factory bolt through there. And same at the bottom, silver PEM nuts towards the exterior of the car. And you'll notice here why I said you might wanna leave that bracket loose, just so that you can wiggle that guy in. Grab those factory 10 mils and throw those on the bottom. Then once those are all in there loose, you can go ahead and grab that same Torx and 10 mil and get those all snugged up, and then you can finish aligning and fully tightening your lower hinge. Okay, so once you have both of our hinge adapters in, you'll go ahead and grab the corresponding frame, and we'll go ahead with the 5/16 bolts. You'll go ahead and slide your frame over it. And same as everything else, just get them in there snugged up, because you are gonna have to align the door. Same thing down here on the bottom. All right, and once those are in loose, we'll go ahead into getting the latch assembly all set up. Okay, so next step, you're gonna wanna grab your paddle and your latch bracket. The way to tell that this is the passenger side latch bracket, when you go ahead and set it up with the door, this notch should be offset towards the top of the door. And go ahead and take a couple of those M10 bolts that come in your hardware pack, and these front two will thread directly into the paddle. And then from there, what you're gonna have to do is you'll grab the actual latch from the ops side, still the rear door, but for the passenger side, you'll use the pre-existing driver side latch. And you'll go ahead and install that with the factory hardware. Then once you've got this all assembled loose, you can go ahead and fully tighten these two 8mm bolts that go to the latch, and just snug up those M10s, because again, the door is gonna need adjustment and this is gonna have to move. Okay, so once you've got your door hung and your latch assembly installed, your next step is going to be to install the lower skin bracket. So they have a slight taper to them. The way that you're gonna tell which side is your passenger side is this notch is gonna go towards the front of the car, and this flat should be outside. So once they're installed like that, same thing, you should see these flats on the outside with this notch forward. Once you've got that correct side identified, you'll go ahead and throw in those M10s nice and loose. And keep these guys snug. Don't tighten them all the way down, because once the door is adjusted with that skin on there, you're going to adjust down here too to be able to pull or push, pull in or push out that lower section of the skin to fully align it with the front door. All right, and last step in assembling the frame before we can go ahead and get the skin on here is to mount the center skin bracket. So same thing, there's a passenger and a driver side on these. To go ahead and identify your passenger side, you're going to want to go ahead and make sure that this notch sits towards your frame and that it's up and out so that you line up with your skin there. So once you've identified the correct one, go ahead and grab one of those 1/4-20s in your hardware kit. Get that started and just snug it up, because it is going to have to get adjusted once everything else is all assembled. Okay. So before we get the skin on, we're gonna go ahead and throw some of this foam taping on so that we can just eliminate some rattles. You don't have to do the whole frame. There is just some key areas that we'll wanna focus on. Go ahead and tear yourself up a couple inches here. And we'll start just going along this bolt hole. Your frame will sit there. We'll do the same thing on this back section. You'll get that lower skin bracket. And then you'll get back here along the sheet metal part of your frame and just a hair along the back there. That's all you're going to need for your rear doors. All right, once your foam is all on, you can go ahead and grab that full assembled door. Go ahead and remove this front bolt if you've already installed it. And you're just going to want to go ahead and hang it on those top two mounts and let the bottom drop. And then you'll go ahead and throw in the 4 aluminum door skin bolts. So again, on these pieces of hardware, just like the hardware that we use to put the skin together, you can opt for black hardware on the website, but it is going to come standard with regular silver hardware. So go ahead and just set those guys in. Snug them up by hand for now, and then once they're all in, we can come back and fully tighten them because the skin is not going to need to get adjusted on the frame. All right, and last step for the skin install, if you had previously installed this bolt, go ahead and remove it and reinstall it through the skin and through the center skin bracket. And you can go ahead and tighten that guy all the way up as well. So once you have the rear door all installed, you're going to want to go ahead and grab the doorstop bracket and the little rubber bumper and put it in the outside of that bracket. You can just grab a pair of pliers and pull it through the back, or you can kind of work it through by hand. And then once that's in, we'll go ahead and remove this T40 as well as this bolt right here. All right, so once you have those two pieces of hardware out, you'll go ahead and thread that factory bolt through your bracket, run it back through, and reinstall it with the factory nut. And just pry up on those plastics there until you can see what you're doing. And what I like to do is just get it to where it's level with the ground and get it snug, not overly tight, but to where it can still move. So once that's snug to where it can still move, you can come through and push down on the bottom of that door and latch it. Then reopen your door and that'll adjust it to where it's leaving just enough tension on that door to be able to eliminate any rattle. Then you'll go ahead and snug it up all the way and reinstall that T40 Torx. Okay, so next step here, like I said, we're gonna go ahead and get the whole latch assembly installed in this frame here. So you'll want to go ahead and identify your passenger side latch mount. To identify that, it's going to set on the inside of this bracket here. This flange should return towards the interior of the car. If it returns toward the exterior, you've got the wrong side. So you grab the right side there. You'll sandwich that bracket between the factory paddle. And grab a couple of those 1032s. And get those snugged up into that factory latch. And then this back one here will use a bolt, nut, and washer. All right, last step in assembling your frame here before we can go ahead and get the skins on is you'll just have to install the actual bear claw latch. The front doors are going to use the same side. They're not going to flip like the rears did. So just go ahead and grab that latch and hardware. and get those all fully tightened up. Okay, so before we can get that skin on, we'll just have to go ahead and foam it just like we did on the rear. Same case, you're only gonna have to do certain sections of it where it touches your frame. So get 5 or 6 inches on this back edge here. Obviously, you'll get all of the points where the skin actually bolts through. A little bit on that sheet metal bracket here. As well as both of those sheet metal mounts on the bottom. And again, this doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be the prettiest. All right, and so last step up here, go ahead and hang the skin and install your hardware. Okay, so once you have your skins on both your front and your rear doors, your rear hinge brackets are loose enough to allow the door to move. What you'll want to go ahead and do is go ahead and just move that door to where it'll shut. Get that latch shut all the way. And for your front door, you're going to try to slide that door as forward as you can before it makes contact with any of your plastics. And once you get the actual skin happy, go ahead and snug them down. Again, not fully tight just yet, just enough to where when you open and close the door, it isn't going to lose its position. Now, once you're snug on a couple of those here at the back on the hinge, you'll go ahead and snug up the 3 bolts that are holding the latch assembly in its position as well. So as you can see now, I've got the door open and it's not moving up and down. What you should be able to do is shut that door just like normal now. All right, so now you've got that front door all adjusted and snugged up. We'll go ahead and do the same thing for the rear. So just like that front, go ahead and make sure that you can get it all closed. And with everything snugged up, you should be able to push and pull and kind of get these body lines to match up. And same thing that you did with the front where you pushed it as far forward. You'll kind of want to pull this one as far towards the rear as you can. At least, you know, before hitting the plastics. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna open up this body line and just make sure that these doors aren't going to crash. We'll check that once we have this door all tightened up. So you've got it slid back, you've got it latched. Take that 13 mil and go ahead and snug up a top and bottom bolt, just like we did on the front. Doesn't have to be the tightest thing in the world, just tight enough to where it's not going to move when we open it. And then take that Allen key and snug up your latch assembly where it's at. And then to confirm your alignment, you should be able to just close your door. All right, so once you've got everything snugged up on your hinges and your latch assembly for your front and rear door, we can go ahead and check clearance by opening the front door and making sure that we're not coming into contact with the rear skin anywhere. Looks like we're good. Again, we can verify the fitment there. And on the back door, we're gonna be looking for up here that we make contact and just down in here everywhere, making sure that we're not making contact with our plastics. And we're not, we are all good there. Again, we can confirm that she closes all the way. Our last 2 steps of adjustment on the doors before we finish them are going to be this center skin bracket and that lower skin bracket that we talked about previously. So go ahead and shut that door. Here it looks like on the center skin we're already adjusted really, really well, but you can see down here we've got a pretty good gap from the front door to the back door. So what we'll want to do is on those bolts that we installed snug before, you can slide that bracket further towards the inside of the car. And get that guy flush. Then we can reopen the door and tighten all that hardware down all the way where it's at. All right, and so with those couple final adjustments made, that's the end of the install on the passenger side of your V2 doors. All you gotta do now is go ahead and repeat that same process on the driver's side, and you're all set.